the voices in your head. They said that love has shut the door on you, and you'd be better off instead. Girl, don't you listen. Your time is gonna come. You talk about lonely, you talk about scared. I think you're thinking that nobody cares. Well, you know it ain't over, but where to begin? You gotta play if you wanna win. Yeah. So when you gonna let somebody in? It's a classic situation where you don't know how to feel. So you go it alone. You turn off the phone when the struggle gets too real. Yeah. Girl, you better listen. It's time to make a change. You talk about lonely, you talk about scared. I think you're thinking that nobody cares. Well, you know it ain't over, but where to begin? You gotta play if you wanna win. So when you gonna let somebody in? Yeah, let 'em in. You talk about lonely, you talk about scared. I think you're thinking that nobody cares. Well, you know it ain't over, but where to begin? You gotta play if you wanna win. So when you gonna let somebody had another rough conversation with the voices in your head. They said that love has shut the door on you, and you'd be better off instead. Girl, don't you listen. Your time is gonna come. You talk about lonely, you talk about scared. I think you're thinking that nobody cares. Well, you know it ain't over, but where to begin? You gotta play if you wanna win. Yeah. So when you gonna let somebody in? It's a classic situation where you don't know how to feel. So you go it alone. You turn off the phone when the struggle gets too real. Yeah. Girl, you better listen. It's time to make a change. You talk about lonely, you talk about scared. I think you're thinking that nobody cares. Well, you know it ain't over, but where to begin? You gotta play if you wanna win. So when you gonna let somebody in? Yeah, let 'em in. You talk about lonely, you talk about scared. I think you're thinking that nobody cares. Well, you know it ain't over, but where to begin? You gotta play if you wanna win. So when you gonna let somebody?
We're giving the community what the stylists don't want to do anymore. stylists don't want a shampoo. We're even partnering with stylists. They're saying, hey, I don't have the time to shampoo, so won't you go over to the shampoo bar? We're doing steam treatments, taking braids down, locks. So you come in, we're gonna shampoo, condition, put pomade, hair growth, stimulating growth, and we're gonna actually manipulate those beards. And if y'all have bundles and units, bring those in. We will bring them back to life. You drop off, we call you, you pick up. Just like a dry cleaner. We have 2 complimentary drinks. One is called the Tide. The next drink is called the Old Fashioned. And we're not going to tell you what's in any of these drinks. They are exclusive to the shampoo bar. I'm not telling you, okay? So go to our website, shampoobar.com. That's it.
All right, good evening. Happy Thursday evening to you, broadcasting from the B-Level Entertainment Studios. I'm your host, and tonight, we have something really special on the UTB podcast. We're doing something, a special edition of the Arkansas Ballot Breakdown. Now, I've got 2 great guys, 2 of my great friends that are going to help me tonight. But before we get to them, I need to tell you the one announcement before we start, that every Sunday night, we have a great podcast with the great crews, the best podcast in the world, called the Unpacking the Baggage podcast, where we talk every Sunday evening at 7 o'clock. And I have a wonderful crew: Little Rock Princess, Tristan Hobbs, Anthony P., Candy Webb, and Jada with the T. We talk everything from relationships to celebrity gossip to everything, each and every Sunday night at 7 o'clock. Please make sure you tune in. And then on Wednesday nights, we have On the Level with B-Level, where we have extraordinary conversation with extraordinary people. And we're doing a special edition tonight. Let me get my friends on the line. I want to welcome to the podcast my dear friends. Big round of applause for my guy, Scott Hamilton and Eddie Armstrong. How you fellas doing tonight, man?
Solid, thanks.
Yeah,
Scott,
man,
you
doing
okay?
great. Oh, doing great. Happy to be here. You know, I comment every week. You know what I say every week. We ain't gonna say it right now. We'll say it later in the podcast. But I've been trying to get on, so I appreciate the invite. I'm finally on.
Yeah. So listen, Scott. We need to be doing what we're doing tonight. Now, before we get into it, I do want everyone to share this live. If you have a question for any of the fellas, myself, Scott, or Eddie, put it in the comment box. And if I see something that's relevant, we will stop and we will ask. If you have any questions that you're confused about, put it in the comment box, and I will get the guys to slow down and ask this question. I'm going to do an opening statement, and then we're going to get into the why we're doing this, okay? Fellas, just hang tight. Let me do my opening statement, and here we go. All right, you guys, tonight is not about red or blue, okay? It's not about telling you who to vote for. It's not about campaigning. Tonight is about clarity. Welcome to the special edition of the UTB, the Arkansas Ballot Breakdown. For a lot of people, voting can feel intimidating. The ballot looks long. The races feels confusing. Sometimes you don't even know what a position does or how it affects you every day. And when you don't understand, it's easier just not to vote. That's why we're doing this. Tonight, Scott Hamilton and Eddie Armstrong are walking through the ballot race by race, national, state, and local. And we're talking about what each position represents, what each office does, and how those decisions impact you right here in Arkansas and across the country. Let me be clear. We are not endorsing anyone. We are not campaigning for anyone. We are not telling you who to vote for. We are simply giving you information, because an informed voter is a powerful voter. UTB is stepping up and doing something different, not to influence your vote, but to encourage you to use it. When you walk into the booth, we want you confident, not confused. This is the Arkansas Ballot Breakdown. Let's get to it. Again, fellas, the reason why we're doing this is Scott and Eddie, there's sometimes, getting all of these races and all of these, campaigns and all of these politicians, it gets very confusing, right? So Scott and I got together and we thought that we should try to walk tonight as slowly as we can, go race by race, go campaign by campaign and just give you information. Okay. Sometimes it gets confusing. It gets so overwhelming. Sometimes people decide not to vote, and we don't want them to do that. So that's the reason for our conversation. Again, I want to welcome both of you gentlemen here, and I'm going to pitch it over and let Scott start off and just expound on what I just said, introducing you guys.
Yeah, Brian, man, I appreciate it. Like I said, this is important to me personally. It's important to me. What I do as the CEO of the Urban League is that voting really, really does matter. You know, so often here lately, a lot of times we hear folks that say, I don't vote, I haven't voted, it's not my thing, I'm not into politics, it doesn't matter, my vote doesn't count. You get all of it. Of course, you also get folks that I was the second one to vote because I was the first one in line to vote, so they can't be number one.
Okay.
What I'm glad and proud that we're doing tonight is having this conversation and opening up the airways where people can hopefully, chime in, share their thoughts, their concerns, if they have them about voting. Let's talk about it because, there's a lot of, as you said a minute ago, a lot of confusion, a lot of sometimes not a good understanding. And it's complex. I got my phone, I got my notepad, and I got another laptop here. I don't know all this stuff off the top of my head, wouldn't even try. But at the end of the day, it is our civic duty, responsibility as citizens to be involved with the voting process. It is the only direct process that citizens have that can impact anything from our systems of government, our leadership, things that affect us directly, indirectly. This is the process that this country came up with. Now, is there a better process out there? Could be. But right now, this is the process. As a citizen of this country, you have the right to vote. Now, we got some things that may sometimes prevent you or delay you from voting, depending on some things that may be in your life space. But those can also be resolved, and we know what we're talking about here. But we ain't gonna get into that just now. Let me give you a little history here. I'm a sucker for reading. I'm gonna give you just a real quick major milestones in U.S. voting rights since 1920. That's the time, about the kind of time that we had the opportunity as folks that look like us to even consider wanting to vote. So in 1920, you had the 19th Amendment, which granted, get this, 1920, women the right to vote nationwide. So it was not until 1920 that women could in the United States. 1924, you had the Indian Citizenship Act, which extended U.S. citizenship and voting rights to Native Americans, though many states still imposed barriers. Native Americans, they were here first. 1944, you had a Supreme Court ruling that said that white primaries were unconstitutional. Kind of know what that means. There's only one color that could get. 1964, you had the 24th Amendment, which prohibited poll taxes. And we're going to talk about that because that's the trip in federal elections, moving a major financial barrier to voting. Just think about it. There was a time that our ancestors had to actually pay money in order to vote. 1965, you had the Voting Rights Act, and that outlawed literacy tests, discriminatory voting practices, and required federal oversight in states with histories of voting suppression. That's 1965. You're going to hear a lot about that. And that was a milestone in voting. What they did is that gave the right and opportunity of folks that look like us to vote. We couldn't vote till 1965. And it took a lot of effort to get there. 1971, you had the 26th Amendment, which lowered the voting age from 21 to 18. 75, they expanded protections, more language for minority groups, requiring bilingual ballots and materials for people with any kind of other disabilities. You had National Voting Registration Act in 1993, which simplified voter registration. 2002, you had the Help America Vote Act, and that modernized our voting systems, established standards after the 2000 election issues. There were some major ones then. And in 2013, we had Supreme Court that struck down some key parts of the Voting Rights Act, which reduced federal oversight, leading to new state level restrictions. And 21 going forward, we're seeing a whole lot of voting restrictions. So what I'm saying, folks, is this: voting is important. If voting wasn't so important, all the stuff I just read to you wouldn't be out there. There wouldn't be a whole lot of conversation going on right now about voting and requiring certain things and concerns. So pay attention to the history of voting. Eddie, what you think about that?
I mean, you hit the nail on the head. And thank you guys so much. B-Level, always much respects. Double salute to you, brother, for what you're
Appreciate you.
doing, your podcast. Truly enjoy it. As a new novice in the podcast space, I'm having fun learning this space. But my brother Scott Hamilton from the Arkansas Urban League called on me and said he could only think of one person. And I said, yeah, that's a long shot. To participate in this conversation. And as I reflected on it today, I've been at this since I was 13 years old, 14. So I've begged for votes, I've asked for votes, I've passed out leaflet for votes, I've even gone to the polls and put my name on the ballot to be voted for. And then I voted and created a lot of laws and bills. So I know this industry and the power of it inside and out. And I've been able to study and learn that for quite some time, and I think Brother Scott hit on a really reflective point. Currently, as a business owner and I guess a semi-retired politician, as they say, once a politician, you're always in the game. And I
That's right.
truly love the game. I'm like Ace Boogie off of Paid in Full. I love the game. I love this game because I recognize the power in it. I truly recognize the business in it. I recognize the access in it and the change that it can make. And today I think what Scott was highlighting around the history is so relevant to tee off this conversation, and for especially our young people to understand that look like us, who are not as sick and tired as some of our elders are of all the fighting that has been done dating back to the 60s all the way up to now 2026. But you got to put in perspective, poll taxes, the violence they faced to simply register to vote at one point in time in America's history. For many Americans, the right to vote wasn't theoretical, in my opinion. It was contested. They were fought tooth and nail, and we're seeing some of that formulation now. People are actually being contested on their actual right to go and cast their vote. And I believe that, when something is fought for, it truly carries weight. You remember your first fight or a fight you might have had last night with somebody. The feelings are there, the thoughts are there. So once these votes happen and they carry the weight that they do, as the elders would say, you can't complain about it after the fact. As my brother Barack Obama, shout out to one of the greatest presidents, if not the greatest president in our lifetime. Don't complain about it. Go vote.
Right.
Go
Right.
vote. So,
Right.
tonight's conversation and dialogue, I really am looking forward to diving in on this and just really unpacking not only the history, but the responsibility and the requirement for participation. It's the one of few things you will have to do in your life that really do make a difference. I know some of the youngins might be like, this don't impact me. It won't hit my doorstep. I can remember that, the great MC Mos Def once saying, this isn't going to affect anything I'm doing in New York, so why should I be worried about it? But as an intellectual and as somebody that truly understands voting and the parameters of how they impact you up and down the ballot, from your city council to
Right.
your county judges to your local mayors, and then you get to the mayors, governors, presidents. That's the big news stuff. But these local elections, these judge races, these races do matter. And the reason they matter is because they have consequences and repercussions. And you don't typically see it on the front end because people can show you two shades of themselves just to get the vote. The real work goes in after they get to governing. And coming from a place where I've seen people pander for votes to get the vote and then have to pivot in their style of governing because we now have to write and pass real laws. That's something that young people, and I think everybody should come to understand, that it's one thing to go get the vote. It's another thing to actually go and govern and really truly help or focus on the intentional things that mean the most for any one community, one city, one state, one town, one county. So I'm excited to dive into this conversation, and I appreciate you guys.
Cool. Okay, Scott, where do you think we should start? I mean, do you want to start with races? Do you want to start with,
Yeah, Scott,
obviously
I got all my race stuff here. I
Yeah,
got all
Right. I got
everybody.
do you want to start with the simplest form of is it too late to register to vote? Can you still, Scott, Eddie, still register if you got some people out there that are not registered? Is it too late for them to register?
So the quick answer to that, no, it's never too
No, it's
late to
never too late to
register to vote.
register.
If you're not registered to vote, if you're 18, you need to be registered to vote, and it's very easy. All you got, you go to the clerk's office. You can go almost anywhere. I mean, you can go online with your phone. There's a site called Voter. I think it's called VoterView.org. You type that in. It'll have just a real simple thing. You can put your name in there. It'll tell you if you're registered to vote. If you've moved to Arkansas from another state, you need to change your voter registration. So the answer is that you can register anytime. Now, it's too late to register for the upcoming election that's going on next week, right? We're in early voting. It started on the 17th of February. Actual voting day is next Tuesday, March the 3rd. You can't register for that one, but you can register for November. Where we are now is what they call the primaries. You have two different phases of voting. You have what's called the primaries, which is first, and then you have the general election, which is second. The primaries is kind of like a weeder, if you will. It's kind of eliminating a larger pool. So you typically will have folks running under a Democratic ticket, a Republican ticket, an independent ticket. Hell, they got some new tickets. I don't even matter. But at the end of the day, you got to narrow that down. So if you've got multiple parties running under one name or group, say Democrats or Republicans, then in your primaries, they are voting to say who's going to go on to the next phase, which is called the general, which is typically in November. And so in this process where we are now, that's what's going on. Now,
and unpack that a little bit, Scott, so that people can understand. So in these primaries, you may have two Democrats.
That's right.
From the same neighborhood or same city that are running for the same position.
They might even be related.
And they may be related. And he or she who makes it out of that first contested race is only phase one.
That's right.
You get through your primary, and some are lucky to have an uncontested primary. So you make it through your primary, consider that phase one. Young people, oftentimes people in general, forget that there's another election in November, especially in midterm years. And then you've got the general election, which happens in November. So we're right now upon the precipice of March 3rd, next Tuesday, going to the polls and voting in what we consider the primary election cycle. And then we will move towards November's actual election date. Correct, Scott?
That is spot on. So the answer again is this. It's not too late to register. Register whenever you can, as early as you can, as fast as you can. If you're not registered, you just won't be able to vote in this upcoming primary, which is fine.
But it still doesn't mean you shouldn't register. Putting your reservations for next year or for the next cycle, which will be upon us soon, that puts you in the hopper. And should you be registered to vote, it's not enough for you to be registered and not do nothing with it. It's like having car insurance and not using your insurance if you're in a motor vehicle accident. You have that opportunity. It does matter, short or long term. It's about being engaged in this process. And for Arkansas, we're fortunate enough to have access to people. You see me out and about, B-level. You can find Scott anywhere. You definitely can pull up at 801 any day of the week and ask him a question.
All right. So for those of you guys, Marty North has put it in the website for you to register to vote. Okay. It is in our chat. It is a link. All you have to go through the comment, and I'll try to pin that up top. But Marty North has put that there where you can go to register to vote. Thank you, Marty, for doing that. Okay. All right. Go ahead. Scott, we're back to you.
Yeah. So So that registration is key. It's important. Get out there and register. I went through the chronology of the history of what it took in getting to a point where people could be able to vote. Get involved. Don't let someone convince you that it doesn't matter. Understand, just like Eddie said, you got car insurance, you're in an accident, and you're going to go it alone. Why would you do that? And the reason why it's so important to get involved with voting is because now you as an individual are speaking to this society to say what's important to you. All right. What's important to me may not be important to B-level, may not be as important to Eddie. We may all agree on the same thing. We may not, but it doesn't matter. What really matters is what matters to you, what matters to your family, what matters to those that are close to you. So a lot of times when you look at the process of voting, when I look at voting, a lot of times I'm not necessarily always voting for me. I'm voting for those that I know, my friends, some of my family members that may have things that are more impactful to them than they are me. So your reason for voting is yours personally, right? But you need to be involved, because if you're not, that means somebody else is voting for you. Right? Somebody else is deciding what it is that you can and cannot do in this society. And we're going to drill a little deeper into it, because voting is just not when you hear a big name that you know, somebody running for president or somebody that you really recognize. It's not just those races. It's the little stuff, right? You know, I always joke, say, I vote for dog catcher, because that way I can select a dog catcher that ain't going to catch my kind of dog. You're going to let them go, right? So the whole thing is that you want to be involved in that process so that your voice is heard. A lot of people say it doesn't matter. Yeah, it really does. If you go back in some recent elections, just the last election cycle, the number of elections where people won by less than, say, 100 votes, 50 votes. I think, Eddie, there was a couple places around the state where the vote differential was like two, you know? And so that means it really does. People do count the votes, right? And if they did not do that, we wouldn't be hearing so much about what's going on.
We hear all the time, or not all the time, is it rigged?
That's right.
It doesn't matter to me, man. I ain't get, sisters and brothers, people anywhere. Why would you do that? They've got, that's not true. And I know that because I had to walk and knock on 11 plus thousand doors and ask each home to cast their vote for my campaign, and watch through a system each of those votes get tallied up with field workers at each polling station to call into our office and say, we got 50 votes in the South End. We got 150 votes next door. We got 250 votes here. That all gets tabulated up. So this whole it's rigged, it doesn't matter. I want to demystify and end that too with saying it's real and these votes do matter. And 2 votes, 200 votes. I mean, a little bit can put you a long way. And that means a lot for those people going out there and working, because it takes a humbling experience to really find yourself meeting people where they are, to simply ask them for something so meaningful to them like their vote.
So the next simple question for those of you guys who are just tuning in, we're talking to Scott Hamilton, Eddie Armstrong. We're talking about the voting process, where you can vote. Early voting right now, there are specific locations that you can early vote. All right. On the day of the election, you have to vote at your voting site.
Correct.
So how many elected places can they vote for early voting? How many places do we have around?
Multitudes, and maybe Sister Marty can help put that up too, but there are multitudes of polling precincts throughout Pulaski County and throughout our great state where individuals can go vote. And when you do register, they typically and will notify you and let you know exactly where your polling precinct is for the actual election day. Now, during early voting, there are identified spaces and places for that. Scott, you want to unpack some of those highlighted places around Central Arkansas for people?
Yeah, and Eddie's absolutely right. So we're still in early voting. What that means is the first 2 weeks before the actual voting day, you can vote early. You should vote early because you got more locations, opportunities to vote. The lines are typically shorter, so you can get in, get out. I went and voted. It took me 7 minutes, right, in and out. So if you wait for that last day, it's typically going to be potentially long lines, and a lot of time that you may not have. So don't wait for the last day. Go to early voting. That's why they put it out there. All of that is a process that was designed to help people have as much opportunity and flexibility. You can go to the Urban League website at ulark.org. You'll see a big purple voting banner up there. Just scroll down a little bit. There'll be a couple of things you can click on, and it'll give you all the sites. Now, typically, your public libraries, your county courthouse, those are typically in any county around the state that you can go vote. There are other places that you can find specifically in your communities, but you can always find a public library, your county courthouse. And like I said, if you go to our website, you'll see a list. So, just take a little time to find out. If you're not here in Pulaski County and other areas, go to your county clerk's office. That's all you got to do. Call them, and they will tell you where you can vote.
And again, Marty North is helping us out because she just put the link to find out where those locations in the chat room. Just go there to the comment, click that link. It will tell you where you can early vote at. And there. Thank you, Marty North. We need to put Marty North on the payroll. We need to put her on the payroll, fellas.
She on the virtual payroll forever. Marty's always on the
no
spot.
complaints there.
All right, okay, fellas. We've got the housekeeping things out of the way, right? I mean, we've talked about where you can vote, who can vote, all of those things. Where do we want to start this conversation first? Where do we want to go first, fellas?
You want to flip a coin? You want to draw straws? It don't matter. It don't matter where we start. Let's. I don't know. Hey, what you think? You want? Let's see. I got my list here. It's a lot of things. A lot of folks running for things out here. Again, B-Level, you said it best. It is not our objective at all to tell you who to vote for. All right. Yeah. What we're simply saying is we're going to give you the best we can of what those races look like. A little bit about, who those names are. You're going to, when we start talking about some of these names, you've heard these names, you're seeing the commercials, right?
Right.
Do your own homework, right? Make sure that you go to that site that Marty's posted, that voter view, and you can actually put your name in there. It will give you your actual ballot. I'm saying it again. You type your name in there, and I ask you, I think, for your address and date of birth or something like that. It will electronically say, here's your ballot. So exactly what you're going to see when you go to vote. Not a sample, not one that's similar. It is yours. And what I suggest you do is do that now and look at what's on there. And if you don't recognize something, a name or an issue or initiative that's to be voted, take this thing right here and just type it in. It'll tell you. It'll tell you. It's enough information so you can do your research on the candidates, right? You can do your own research. Or if you got someone that you believe in and trust, call them up. Have a conversation about it. But go into that voting booth at least informed. You want to vote on everything. I mean, a lot of times people will go in, they'll vote on just the things they recognize. They leave a lot of stuff blank. Well, not voting on something is not the way you want to be. You want to be.
All right. So I do want to end. That's a valuable question that I need to ask when you're talking about voting on the issues and the campaigns. And here's a question that I have right off for you and Scott. If you don't know anything about it, right? What if you don't know about the issue? Are you doing more harm to vote on something you don't understand, you don't know about it? That's question one, Scott, Eddie. Another one, what if neither one of the candidates, you rocking with neither one of them? I don't rock with neither one of these guys. Which one of these creeps should I vote for? Because I ain't rocking with neither one of them. What do you should you not vote in that specific race? What do you guys think is a wise thing to do if you're in those two situations? And I'm gonna start with you, Eddie, first.
That's a great question, B. I think it starts with beyond registering, and hopefully people are not so worn out. It's gonna take a little more homework, B, than just registering. And the homework is in identifying what's going on. I've also had the privilege of running a ballot initiative to try and legalize medical marijuana for the state of Arkansas. The title in the ballot initiative was way too big for people to quite understand. What does all of this truly mean? So there is some preliminary homework, whether it be a ballot initiative issue or the person, that will require just a little homework. And that too can be found at your fingertips now. There's plenty of information that is clear and cut, and the Urban League provides it, and other sources that can tell you not only about ballot proposals, but also about the people you're voting for. To the second question you asked, if you're not rocking with the ballot initiative, Scott's point was a valid one as well. A no vote is a vote that somebody else is picking up. So anytime you go zero on the board, that's one for the other side. So I would encourage you to make certain you're doing your homework there on that proportion. If you don't quite understand the ballot initiative, my aunt, shout out Amo, she may not understand it all sometimes. She may skip a ballot, and that is okay, but she understands that that's something she skipped. On the people, if you're not rocking with either one of them, it is your choice. That is why it is a private matter. You don't come out of the voting booth saying, well, I didn't vote for either one of them this time. I didn't know who to vote. That's between you and the voting booth. But the important fact is to do the early homework.
That's right.
Right.
There's no cost to asking questions.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
a free thing to do and to try and dig in and find out. And especially in this new world of technology, any question you ask from Google to AI, it can spit you out an answer
You
that
better.
you can quite naturally understand and carry in that booth with you to make the votes that are right for your community, your neighborhood, your state, your city. So there's always a little bit more homework. B. Hopefully that answers the question. Scott, what
No,
do you
that
think?
do. That do. Scott, you got something you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think Eddie hit it brilliantly, man. I think, it's the type thing that, voting is like anything else. You get better at it with time. That's why you start early, right? I mean, I still go in sometimes. I'm like, exactly what you said. Which one of these jokers is more badder than the other joker? You know, I was like,
It's that way
Yeah.
sometimes. It's straight
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
It's real.
Yeah.
both
That's
of them
real.
bad. Or a lot of times, I got a whole lot of degrees sometimes, and Eddie's exactly right. Back on that initiative Eddie's talking about, I called him up. I said, Eddie, how should I vote? I said, give me the short version. And he did. And I understood it. When I read it, I was so confused. I was like, okay, this is what I know what I want to have happen. But reading this is, and I'm gonna tell you something. A lot of times things are written that way intentionally to confuse people. A lot of times you'll read about different things that might be a bond initiative. That means, funding for a school district, where a school district may say, hey, we want to build a new high school. You might see something on there called either a bond or a millage, and it'll try to explain what they're doing. They're building a new stadium. They're building a new, campus environment, something. And it'll say, do you want to approve that being a new tax? Now, there's stuff that, and again, remember, if you're not voting and somebody else is, then there's things that could impact you. It could be a tax. It could be all kinds of things that are there. You got to vote. So the answer is right. Don't be scared. Nobody is going to chastise you. Nobody's going to come out and say, "Oh, you didn't finish voting everything." Do your best that you can. Do your best. Go. At least try to start somewhere. And what you will learn, like we're saying, is that over time you get better. Again, go to that site that we talked about. I think it's Arkansas. Let me see. We'll come up with it in a minute. We'll make sure it gets posted. But anyway, get your actual ballot so that you can read it. So that way, when you go in, you've already researched that, right? You've already done your homework. You can go in. You can take some little notes if you need to. Put them on your phone. I mean, you ain't got to try to remember all this stuff. Nobody is going to embarrass you or say anything to you, no matter how you vote. It's between you and that voting ticket that you got. Nobody knows. So that's the answer: is get out there and just do it. But do as much research as you can up front so that you can be aware of those people that are running for office and or some of the issues that you may be asked to say yes or no.
Okay. All right. Fine. All right. So where do we want to start? Where do we want to start? We got a lot to unpack tonight. Where do we want to start, Eddie? Where do we want to start, Scott? We want to start local, national. Where are we going?
Oh my gosh.
It's a motor field. And, for people out there that don't know what's really going on right now, you got 135 members of the Arkansas legislature.
Sure
They're
do.
all up for reelection.
Yeah.
And being a member of that esteemed body and carrying that badge proud for the city of North Little Rock, um, that's a lot of races. And some races are uncontested, other races are bringing in spouses, and it's a lot moving in that space. But starting with home rule first, I think thinking about our local races
Yeah.
and then working your way to the top is the way that I always like to think about election cycles. When is the next city council race? When is the mayor's race? When is the county judge's race? When is the county clerk's race? What races matter to me right here on 27th and Pike, or 18th,
Absolutely.
any of that,
Yes.
18th and Woodrow? What matters local first? So capturing that and then moving all the way into the 135 members of the House of Representatives, your
Yeah.
Congress races, your Senate races, your Secretary of State, Land Commissioner. Too much.
It's a
Local
lot.
first is what really matters. And I think that people should pay attention to that as we're looking at these races and when they're happening for Congress, constitutional officers,
Yeah.
and state and Senate offices as well.
So
All right.
right
So
off,
what local race we're gonna start talking about
yeah,
first, Scott?
let's start right at the top. I mean, and like Eddie said, it's a lot out there, again, that's why you want to get a copy of your ballot. It's not that much that's going to be on your ballot, but you're going to see representatives, you're going to see governor, you're going to see Congress people, you're going to see all sorts. So let's just start at the top. Let's talk about the governor. So we got the governor's race coming up in November to ultimately decide who's going to be our governor starting in the year of 2027, right? When 2026, election cycles always are the year before the year they take office. They take office usually on January 1st, January 3rd, depending on, if it's a weekend or what have you. But we got a governor's race. So our current governor is Sarah Huckabee Sanders. She's been governor since 2022. I think last time she ran. Yeah, 22. And it's her first term. And so she's running for a second term. There are some contenders. So as we said earlier, you typically have various parties. You have a Republican Party, you have a Democratic Party. Now, we can spend years talking about Republicans and Democrats and independents and what all that means and what they about, this, that, and other. You're hearing all kinds of fun stuff, what each party is saying the other party did do, didn't do, should have done, didn't do, what have you. We ain't talking about that tonight. What we're going to talk about is decide, again, based on your research, who you think is the best candidate for what you need in your life. So in this particular race for governor on the Republican side, we have our current governor. She's an incumbent, means that she's currently in the seat of that position that people are running. She has some people that are running against her. They want to be the governor, right? And
Right.
so there's two right now on the Democratic ticket. You have a gentleman by the name of Ethan Dunbar. And I'm sorry, you got me off. Yeah,
Fred Love.
Fred Love. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Fred Love. I got to take my glasses off to read. I'm reading my notes. You got Fred Love, and you have Supa Mays. Fred Love is currently, I think, a 12-year legislator. He's been in the Capitol. He's been a state representative. He's state senator now. Fred is running as a Democrat, and then you also have Supa Mays. Supa actually ran last cycle for governor, and she's running again this year. So you got two folks that are out there running. Do your research. So in this primary election that we have coming up next week, is that you'll have basically either Fred Love or Supa Mays that will come out the winner of the Democratic side to be governor.
Mm-hmm.
The primary,
That's
correct.
the primary. Once that person is selected, then they will campaign against the Republican side, because in this instance, there's no one that I'm aware of that's running as a Republican against the current governor. I'm looking at my notes to make sure. Yeah, I don't see anybody. I don't think anybody's decided to run against. So
Nope,
what
nope.
you'll see is a campaign going henceforth from March the 3rd until November, the first Tuesday in November, which would then be the general election. So those two people will run. So it's kind of like in sports. If you ran track or whatever, you had you had the eliminations, you had a big group, and then you kind of work your way down. There's contests going on till you get down to kind of the final two. It's almost like the National Football League. You got two entities that show up at the Super Bowl. That's your general, right? All before that, you're kind of in the primaries. Everybody's kind of running against each other. So, I mean, we're going to continue to talk about and try to educate it as best we can, the process, because understanding the process is critically important to being able to understand voting. So, yeah, that's what we got in the governor's race. What do you think, Eddie?
I was going to unpack the fact of giving people some narrative around how these individuals are even selected party by party, and why you don't see an opponent in the race in the Republican Party against our current governor. So usually the parties will convene, and they do convene many times throughout the year, regionally and statewide, to have conversations, discussions about the way their party is moving in one direction or the other. And based off of if it's broke, not broke, fractured, or don't need to be fixed at all, you see Governor Sanders now as the leading contender on the Republican Party ticket. As it relates to the Democrat Party, same process. They have the opportunity within their party to identify who they think can be the best lead for their ticket. And sometimes as a registered Democrat, you can still run and place your name on the ballot listed as a Democrat and may not have the full backing of support of the entire party at the state or national level. So that's something that people I think should understand too, is that these people don't just pop up out of night. Some may ask, well, why isn't anybody challenging our current governor in this cycle? Well, that choice is a choice of the individual and the size of their pocketbook if they choose to want to challenge the incumbent, or the choice of the party as a whole to say, we kind of like how our governor right now is operating, but we think that Eddie Armstrong, if he was a Republican, would be a doable challenger, and we want to put him up to contest against our current governor. That is not the case right now. She is the front runner in the lead of their ticket, and you've got a few individuals on the Democratic side that are running to try and hedge out to who will be the leader of the ticket there. Um, do you have to have a Republican and a Democrat running in each race? The answer is yes. Parties do not leave slates blank. So when you see individuals running for these offices, it is beholden of the party to try and identify, recruit candidates that can best suit the apparatus of being able to be a contender in any one of these races. It would behoove them not to put a candidate on the ballot for these races from the top to the bottom. So there's just some education that I think people need to understand on how we even get to these candidates, and then how they go out and attain and ask for votes.
Yeah, yeah. No, Eddie, you hit it right on. And so that's what you have. Just for some of those, and sometimes me included, I have to do my research also. The governor is the CEO of the state. So if you think of a business, the number one top dog at a business is typically the CEO. As I am the CEO of the Urban League, nobody treats me like that, but I am. The governor is the CEO of the state. And so with that, what that means is that governor, that person that's governor, is leading the things that this state gets done. They work with the legislature, both your House of Representatives, your Senate folks. We'll talk about them in a little bit. But your governor is the top lead person. They are the I ain't gonna use that one, but anyway, I was gonna say HNIC, but anyway, we're gonna say the governor is the one at the end of the day that has a lot of final say so and direction of what your state does. So different things that are going on, the governor. So a governor is a incredibly important person, and must be someone that, as you're looking at voting, you really pay attention. Do your homework. And that way you can decide who you think has the best interest of yours in their mind. That's who you should vote for.
All right,
I
so
want to piggyback on that real quick, B level, and just let people, especially our young people, because that's really where my devotion is. I was plucked up out of the soil on the north side and made something of myself because of so many great people reaching back and wanting to help young people like myself. But I want to remind everybody, especially, you don't have to love politics to love participation. I don't do politics, bro. I ain't in it. You don't have to love that. It's like you don't maybe love going to the club on the weekends. But if there is anything to be said about this world we live in, one must appreciate being able to have the freedom and ability comfortably. Ain't nobody holding no guns outside of the polling station. Nobody's threatening them. Nobody is forcing them to read the dictionary from front to back. You can comfortably go in today's society and cast your vote, free will. And that is participation. So love or hate politics, appreciating the participation and how you get people into public office really can shape the way you live your life on a day-to-day basis. It really does. So I just wanted to hearken upon that young people may feel overwhelmed. They may feel that politics are too loud, or that the institutions are too different, because we gotta fight the liberal, I gotta fight the Republican. Really, you gotta participate. You got to get in the arena first and learn the value of participating in this process.
Absolutely.
All right, so we talked about the governor. Shall we go to Lieutenant Governor next? Is that where we're going to, Scott? We're going to go to Lieutenant Governor.
Well, that's an easy one. There's only one person running, Leslie Rutledge, and she does not have a competitor, so I think she's going to be Lieutenant Governor.
Okay. All right. So I don't even have to. I don't have to screen share that when something is. Who's this? Michael, whoever it is. That somebody that's not even have a chance of winning. He's on this site as being one of her competitors, but Lieutenant Governor, we'll go to the next one.
Oh, I forgive me. And like I said, let me give this disclaimer. I'm not an expert in this. Eddie's much greater at this, but he ain't an expert in this either. And so, but the reason we're here, we just two dudes sitting there saying, y'all need to vote. So,
Gotcha. No, and I'm like, listen, we're all learning off each other.
Right.
All right. So
there is someone. So again, Michael, I apologize. It looks like as a libertarian, that L is a libertarian. Yep. So
that's correct.
All right. Okay. So
the next
all
one.
Right. So that's it. That's it. Attorney General.
Yeah. Attorney General is uncontested. That's Tim Griffin.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Secretary, so you got the CEO, you got the COO, and you got the chief legal counsel. If you're thinking about that in that case, you know, keep going.
Secretary of State.
Well, you can see the candidates there. You've got Senator Kim Hammer, who's been there for a while. He's a Republican. You can see the names that are there. And B-level, probably the value here is not necessarily go one by one, because this is what folks need to do.
Okay.
Exactly what you're doing now. You can get this link, and I'll make sure this link is at the Urban League link site as well.
Okay.
This is what individuals need to do on their own, right?
Okay.
They need to look at all of these offices, because the first thing I would do is pull up what you just showed, right? Look at what that office is. Look up and see what they do. What does the Attorney General do, right? What does the Secretary of State do? Do your research. I mean, you can go to each one of those. You can pull out that Google. You can pull out Chat GPT and say, hey, what does the state attorney general do? Now, it's going to get you probably 85% accurate. Don't trust AI 100%, but it's going to get you in general what it is.
All right. So we'll just, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow your lead. I got a couple of comments I want to put up. Pat O'Brien is saying, if you don't do politics, politics will do you. Hashtag vote. Sly Michelle is saying, yes, she said that I feel like voting should be mandatory, in my opinion.
I agree.
Yes, LaRon Pitt say good educational show, fellas. Marty North is talking about Lieutenant, and then Sly Michelle is I feel like voting should be mandatory. We've already read that. All right, where we going next, fellas? Where we going next?
Let's
I want to jump in. Go ahead, Scott.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Because politics, or the theater of politics, has become something we tune into, and it's either you're over it or you want to see what the next headline grab is. Yep. And I want to try and shift people's frame of thought on understanding that it's not about the personalities. It's truly about the policy. It's about the things that we put on this paper to govern our lives. From I think I heard one of the candidates for prosecuting attorney for Pulaski County talk about some of the detrimental things that can happen to young people if they're caught with weed in the car and a gun. I think you get like a mandatory 30 years to life in Arkansas for something like that. That is written policy law that's maybe young people don't understand. If you're not medically, legal to carry a card and you're caught with that, what implications could happen there. So rather focusing on the personalities of any one of these people, I encourage people to understand what these offices actually control, the budgets, the education, the infrastructure, the healthcare, the things that are underneath the personalities when you get into these offices and seats, as opposed to who can speak the best or who can't speak the best, or the personalities. It's not a personality or beauty contest. This is real deal, impactful things that affect our day-to-day lives. Running water, local banks, access to capital, all goes through the policy and what each one of these offices do.
And Eddie makes a great point here that I think we need to talk about. Again, voting is it's exciting when we got some candidate that's everybody's excited about. They hear the name and you're excited. Hey, this is the person that I want, and like this. But it's the little stuff, So when you start looking at stuff as what seems simple, as school board, you got sometimes 7, 8, 9, 11 different school board members that make decisions about what your kid might be able to do. And to Eddie's point, it's not the personality, you need to pay attention to how folks think. You got to read about or listen to or ask the questions of kind of when you're looking at different names, go back and research them. It's real easy. Anybody that's running for political office, you type their name into this Google thing here, it's going to pop up and
And that
start
seat
reading.
doesn't belong to them. That office doesn't
No, it doesn't
belong to
belong to it.
them. I was merely keeping my seat warm. It will be somebody else's
Right.
when I'm gone.
That's
Right.
right.
Quorum court, city council, state house, White House. It doesn't belong to them. I didn't own that office and that seat.
Exactly
So
right.
when
Just
you
because
go
you're
and
sitting,
vote for these people,
yeah,
you still hold the power to hold them accountable. And
yeah,
if they don't do the job, I told my constituents all the time, if I don't do the job that you have elected me to do and the things that we said we will work on together, get me out of there, fire me, get me. You don't deserve to be there. And I
yeah,
think we oftentimes get them elected and say, oh, well, they love it, they want to do it, let them have it. That's not the case. Beyond the vote at the ballot boxes, now you have somebody that actually works for you. You are their boss versus it being the other way around. You actually have the power and ability to say, hey, representative, hey, councilman, hey, governor, you're really not adhering to what's going on over here on the south end, and we're gonna make some noise,
Right.
and hopefully get you unseated. But and you can repeat that because these offices aren't owned by any one individual at any given time. There will be somebody after them, just like there was somebody before.
that's right.
Good. Good. Good.
Eddie,
Where we going next, fellas?
well, I was going to comment on something Eddie said. Eddie said
All
it
right, go
best.
ahead. Go ahead, Scott Hamilton. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. Scott.
Anyone that's elected to any political office,
Mhm.
if you reside in that area, and that's how it's done. It's based on where you live. It's based on your
Okay.
zip code, based on what city, town, county, state you live in. You have politicians that represent different all those different levels. They work for you. You pay their salaries, the ones that are paid. Some are unpaid, but they work for you.
Yes.
That's why you need to pay attention to who gets in there. That's why you got to be part of the process. If you're a business owner, you just let an employee come in and say, "Hey, I'm here for work today," and you ain't even interviewed them. You don't know what their background
Good
is.
analogy. Great
That's what
analogy.
not voting is like. It's saying the most important part of your right as a citizen and the things that will impact you. You just don't care. Whoever gets in there, whatever they want. You might ask somebody that don't like, a gray jacket. I might like gray jackets. I want a process that says I can wear my gray jacket. But if you got a bunch of people that say no more gray jackets, right? Then I got to go buy some other jackets. Well, maybe I ain't
Yeah.
got the money to buy other jackets. See, there's a lot more to this than I think sometimes we talk about. Po- Political parties that run for positions, you vote them in, they work for you. And as Eddie said, if they're not doing the job that you need, want, and expect, then you vote them out. You can vote yes or no, but you got to be involved. And that's what we're going to keep harping on. Let's jump back onto some of these different parties, though, because I know that's what we talked about. It's a thing. There's a couple of big ones out there. I don't know, Eddie, you want to jump on? Let's just go on to the prosecuting attorney. That's a big race. Big,
Indeed.
yeah,
Indeed. And I want you all to know that that prosecuting attorney's race, the decisions that I named earlier, one of the real critical ones is criminal justice
that's right.
and improving recidivism. And I'm honored to know somebody like Sheriff Higgins and the work that they've done at the Pulaski County Jail to bring their recidivism levels to an all-time historic low in comparison to the state recidivism levels. And if not for the decisions to vote for a sheriff like that, not endorsing, just simply stating he's the man on the job right now. And
Yeah,
for not that, the decisions that he's making in that space or in this prosecutor's race, hopefully our prosecutors whom are trained and schooled on prosecuting to the full extent of the law. It is my hope that in some day of this bright future of ours, prosecutors will also look at holding hands with the incarceration systems to really focus on recidivism reform.
yeah,
We do everything to lock up the hardened criminals as they should be,
right,
no doubt. But
right.
if it's a first timer and he's a young person or she's a young person or anybody like that, could there not be some form of opportunity within the prosecuting attorney's office as well as the justice system to really look at how we tackle recidivism and improving that? And shout out, this is a heated race.
That's
Has a
right.
lot of color to it, a lot of theater, so to speak, on TV right now. Churches whispering, folks in the hood saying some, people at the Capitol. No campaign's gonna go clear of having some good theater. And he or she who has the thickest set of skin and a clear understanding of their objective of why they want to go and serve is number one. Number two, do your homework on if it improves or if it declines. If you think the criminal justice system hadn't gotten any better, you got a decision to make at this election cycle. If you think there are things you want to see that we're not seeing, you have a decision to make this election cycle. Healthcare, same thing. Maternal health, especially amongst African American women. If you don't think these things are improving, rural health, you have a decision to make, and you can keep a scorecard. Look no further than outside your window or down your street or in your neighborhoods and communities to know what is improving and what isn't improving, and then make your decision on that, because that outlasts any one campaign cycle. If you're keeping a scorecard and you're living in squalor in your communities or districts, there's an opportunity for you to say, okay, time for some new fresh blood in office. This isn't working for me.
Eddie says it very well. Um, we all went to some farmer school. I think I barely made it out of Hall High back in '84. And I remember, I think I was student body. Heck, I can't remember what it was, but we all remember that you had student body president, student body vice president. That was a big deal for some folk, right? But you saw it. And that's a simplistic version of what we're still doing today. Everybody had a poster on the wall, and they be standing around in the hallway saying, "Hey, vote for me," this, that, and the other, and that's the same thing. Sometimes it is a popularity contest, right?
Mhm.
But popularity translates to importance, right? So
Mhm.
as Eddie was saying a minute ago, do your research when you look at these lists. And like I said, well, guide you to who's running. First thing you want to do is look at what they're running for. If it's prosecuting attorney, Google it and see what a prosecuting attorney does. So in your mind, you think, oh, okay, this is what this person does. In this instance, a prosecuting attorney is the state's a legal lawyer, if you will, that if someone is suspected or accused of committing a crime, that's the one that's coming to come after you. That prosecuting attorney is not your attorney. They're the ones that's saying, hey, you might have to pay for what we suspected as a crime, right? Well,
And
let's
you
talk
don't
about
want no smoke with the state. You don't want them
it.
fights you can't really win. I mean, we got a chance to see a federal prosecutor last night, and my
That's
man
right.
Edward, and you don't want
But
no smoke with the feds either. Those are two
but what
fights
you
you just
don't want. But what you will understand as you start to learn about how our political system works, all those legislators and representatives that are on that list, 135, 140, whatever, you need to understand that because they're the ones that determine what the laws are, right? So again, something that you might think or feel comfortable doing, if you don't pay attention, could become illegal. And next thing you know, you're facing being charged with something, and that's when you meet that prosecutor, right? Well,
Right.
knowing who that prosecutor is, or the attorney general, or whoever, again, you want to make sure you got someone that you feel comfortable with that will have as best of interest of you in mind. That's your research. That's your
All right.
research.
So for prosecutor, we have Will Jones, who is the current prosecutor now,
That is correct.
and Bobby Forrest Jr. What do you guys know about those two candidates?
They both running for prosecuting attorney.
two
Okay.
lawyers, two lawyers fighting tooth and nail, and I've seen a lot of color in my
Yeah.
life, meaning political theater in color. Um, These are two lawyers vying for whom they think can really shape or transition what we know. And shout out to my man Fitzhill and Arkansas Baptist and what he continues
Oh
to
yeah.
be a drum major for justice on. And that is really shaking up this design system in some ways for how young men that look like me fall through the cracks and never have a chance from the beginning, especially if the infrastructure at home is broken down. Again, a lot of layers there. If you've got poor education systems or one parent at home or living on fixed incomes or below the median income level, there's all of that to unpack. And
That's
then you
right.
commit one crime or three crimes, and no one taught you not to commit any crimes.
Right.
We've got a lot of work to do at this in this prosecuting attorney's office, coming from a lawmaker stance. And I served on the judicial committee with the beloved Senator Joyce Elliott when she was fighting to reduce mandatory sentences for young people under 18, because you can get in this system and you're lost and never to be found on one offense.
That's
And
right.
so, there's a lot of opportunity in this prosecuting attorney's race, as I would call it. And
Yeah.
I would encourage people to turn down the noise on the who did what and why they did it, and really look at who is going to go to work, and get in the work. I mean, there's a lot of work to do there, and that's where I'm going to leave it before I get too emphatic about it.
And let me say this: both I've had both of those guys, both Bobby Forrest Jr. and Will Jones, a guest at on two different episodes where I asked them their beliefs, their policies. I'm going to tell you guys, like Scott Hamilton is saying, Eddie is saying, do your homework. Go back and look at those episodes where they answered questions that both of them were on here for an hour and a half at two different weeks. I asked them about their policies. I asked them about their beliefs, the death penalty, everything. Go back and look at one of those episodes. And I don't know the number it is, but if you go to our YouTube, which is UTB Podcast on YouTube, you can see both of those guys answering questions for an hour and a half on different weeks.
And B level, that's
His
why I
brother's
love
got
what you do.
152 episodes. This ain't gonna be that hard.
Yeah, you fine. But no, that's why what you do is so important. Is because exactly what you said.
Indeed.
Is that you can go back. That's exactly right. Don't listen to us tell you what we think, but go back and do. That's part of your research. Watch them, listen to them, pay attention to what they said. Do your research. You can type those names in right now. You type those names in any kind of social media, they're going to come up. This is a very important race. It has a lot to do with some of the challenges that we have, particularly here in Pulaski County, Perry County, that those two gentlemen are running for as prosecuting attorney. So yeah, definitely take a look. That's an important race, and that is one that's actually going to be determined next week. It's a nonpartisan race, so you don't have the Republican Democrat piece. It's straight up at the end of Tuesday next week, we will know who our prosecuting attorney is. That race does not have to go into November. So that's
good point, Scott.
Take your time.
Good point. That it's nonpartisan. The names are on the ballot. You'll see more commercials, and you'll see more of them out everywhere. And you can also check out B Level's podcast on them. I mean, thank you, for putting that out there for people to be able to go and gravitate to. Scott, I want to bring up another point. People are going to maybe say, B Level, I don't have the time to go back and look at all of that. Well, it's on you. If you're going to take part in this process, it's really on you to do a little homework. You don't have to listen to the whole pod. Skip to the end, get to the middle, find a piece that you think resonates with you, and then lock in on that. And as we look out at the broader races beyond that prosecutor attorney's race, we've got 4 congressional districts here. We've got right here in Central Arkansas, French Hill. This is Congress races now. If you don't mind, be level. We got French Hill and Chris Jones, Zach Huffman, and Chase McDowell. 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats. Chris Jones, a scientist, MIT graduate, a brilliant mind. French Hill, a long-standing banker, and a part of the initial fabric of Little Rock for generations. So you've got opportunities to go look at both of those candidates, and Pulaski County is vying for who will come out of that. Then you've got Northeast Arkansas. Now Arkansas is known as the steel capital of the United States of America. We are producing more steel in Northeast Arkansas than anywhere else in the country. And Rick Crawford's holding that seat. And he's got 1 Democrat opponent, 1 independent, and 1 libertarian over in his area. You've got Northwest Arkansas, the retail capital of the world, where Walmart is. And, we are fortunate to have these things, but you've got Steve Womack. Again, he's the incumbent. He's been there for a while. He's got Robbie Reyes, Christopher Hovekar and Bobby Wilson running. So one Democrat, one Independent, and one Libertarian. And then you've got South Arkansas with Bruce Westerman, which covers a lot more than South. I mean, it's expansive, but goes all the way into the east. Bruce Westerman, a former member of the House of Representatives, now Congressman James Russell, and Stephen O'Donnell. And then the one Senate seat. So we've got 4 congressional districts and 1 Senate seat. And that Senate seat has a heated contested race right now amongst Ethan Dunbar, Hallie Schaffner, which are the 2 Democrats on the ticket in the primary, and then Tom
Right.
Cotton, which is the sitting incumbent senator and the Republican. And he's got 2 opponents against him, Micah Ashby and Jed Little, as well as Jeff Wadlin, which is the Libertarian.
Mhm.
Races that really do matter. And oftentimes, once members get elected, if you don't pay attention and you don't do your homework and don't value this process of being able to go vote, the member can then outfox the constituents. They've been on the job. They know
Yeah.
what to do. They know what to say. They know where all the bodies are buried, and that can be sometimes detrimental too. So it's important that you do keep a scorecard on those things we mentioned earlier, like infrastructure, healthcare, criminal justice. These decisions, as I mentioned, they outlast each campaign cycle. So for somebody to sit on the clock for 18, 25, 50 years in one seat is only up to you. If you're used to mediocre or mediocrity or a C, minus performing member of Congress or prosecuting attorney or governor or any of these people that are running for these offices, you have the ability to make that change by simply being able to go out and cast your vote and encouraging others to do so too. The pendulum will swing,
That's
and
right.
it's all dependent on when and how people choose to cast their votes. And I'm seeing a lot of people say, well, I'm tired of both parties. I don't want to be a Democrat. I don't want to be a Republican. Where is my true choice? I think our country, our neighborhoods, our people are calling for true workers again
That's right.
in this political system. People that are going to actually roll up their sleeves, get to the table, and say, I don't care how much you do not like my position. It matters just as much as yours. So we're going to sit here until we find a way to get to the middle of this. We don't have those type of fighters right now to a large degree. They still exist and they are still in elected office, but we definitely are in a position where I feel like the country will be calling for more workers and less personalities in the future.
Eddie, and thanks for that. I mean, you really laid out, I think, the importance of that action that each of us is really required to do. I don't use the word, you're required. Because if you call yourself a citizen in this country and you choose not to be active in the process that determines how this country operates, you get what you get. And I'm going to tell you something. If you continue to stay in the space of non-active, you're going to be at the bottom of the list. You're going to get the scraps. You're going to get the leftovers if there are any leftovers. Last week, a week or so ago, we lost a huge civil rights advocate and political figure, Reverend Jesse Jackson. And, we all could sit here and talk about different names, Dr. Martin Luther King. We've heard numerous folks that are out doing things. Young folks, let me tell you what they were doing. They're doing the same thing Eddie and I are doing right now. They were trying to make sure that people understood the issues of the time, the things that were going on that could impact you in ways that may not be in the best of your interest. That's what those folks did, pure and simple. And so Jesse Jackson actually ran for president twice, right? He was not successful, but he brought attention to the fact that anybody can be president, right? And that is still the case today. Anybody can run for political office so long as you meet the qualifications. I always check and see what they are. And if you meet the qualifications that allow you to run for political office, do it. Start at the school board level. Start at the local housing. If you live in a neighborhood that has a homeowners association, run for that. Little things that get you engaged with and involved with the decision making of who your neighbors are, your friends, your relatives, your family. It is critically important. You don't have to have any kind of special degree. You don't have to have any kind of special history. You just have to have a desire to serve and be impactful. If the things that are important to you, you don't see it happening, step up and do it. Get involved politically. You don't have to be, as some people say, I don't get involved with politics, to be involved with politics. Being involved with politics is meaning that you are involved with the future of you, your family, things that matter to you. That's that. If you want to call that getting involved with politics, get involved with politics. It's not that hard. Now, we talked a little bit about research and time for doing research. I'm gonna tell you something. I don't buy that anymore, because with this device right here, everything you could ever want is right here. It's right here. I do my best analysis on my white porcelain stool every morning with this device. I get a lot of research done there. So you don't saying you don't have the time to do that. That ain't flying. There's something that you can do. If it's 3 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day that you find before you go to bed, when you first get up, when you're on your break at work or whatever, just take the time. This stuff is important. This stuff is important. I mean, we can get in lines at new store openings. We can go to concerts. We can go to games. We can watch games. We can do all kinds of stuff. Hell, we can watch B-Level, talk about all kinds of stuff. What Tristan tonight? That's my boy.
You see relationships coming up. He got a big relationship show coming up and some other stuff. I got to get on here. I know you provided counseling therapy. I'm here.
You can get it all, fellas. You can get it all.
This show is boring right here. Look at it. Got Eddie Armstrong. I mean, really? My favorite statement: stop smoking weed and vote. I say it all the time, and I say it in jest because I love the conversations that you have. They're real issues,
right?
They're real issues, and whatever. And that's why I watch your show, man. These are people that are talking. This is what's real, and so my need is to understand what's happening out there. What's out there? What's impact? What's popular? What's not popular? What's meaningful to folks? And those are the things that we have to do. But getting involved with, as people say, I don't get involved with politics. Please do. If it's no more than getting registered to vote, go vote. Again, as I said earlier, it's nothing to be scared of. It's nothing to be embarrassed about. You cannot screw up voting. You really cannot.
Mm-hmm. I think about something, Scott, you just raised with the late Reverend Jesse Jackson, and it seems like he met everybody. But this is a man that was there to see his partner, his homeboy, get shot down. And he moved from the assassination of Dr. MLK to positioning himself for America and encouraging young people to have the audacity to dream.
That's right.
To have the audacity to get out there and move their feet, created the Rainbow Push Coalition so he could bring in more people. Didn't matter the color. He said red, yellow, black, or white. We're all precious in God's sight. These are Reverend Jackson's words. He implored that young people move their feet. And, listening to, the beloved Lottie Shackelford, the matriarch of our city here in Little Rock, that serves on the national stage and has been around this since then and is still stomping now. I just have to encourage or say that, every generation is going to inherit this thing,
That's right,
this democracy, and it's always going to be unfinished. It's
big
always going to be
That's why they call it an
messy
experiment.
and but the thing isn't to get disengaged when we're going through this experiment, when we're going through this process. The responsibility is to get engaged because it belongs to us.
That's right.
We wake up, this is ours. We're not in Canada, we're not in Korea, China, or any of our Caribbean countries. We're right here. And so we have to look at it that way, is my encouragement, that it ain't gonna never be pretty. It doesn't belong to the people that have it right now. It belongs to us. And when it doesn't get ugly, doesn't mean you pull out and disengage. In fact, that means you get more engaged because it belongs to you. If your pants messed up, if I spill some ketchup on this shirt tonight, you B-Level, you're gonna go change that, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Just start trying to simplify the responsibility framework we have, especially with the matriarchs and patriarchs that have come before us that did it with far less than that device that Scott's talking about, our phones. The opportunities for access to information. These state Senate races and state rep races, they come around a lot quicker than most. This is they come right back up. So these people don't have a lot of time to breathe on these seats to be like, okay, I got to sleep on this job. You got to get in there and get to work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that is true.
Okay. Okay. So I got a couple comments. Regina saying, "Preach, Scott." Marty North is saying, "If you don't like how things are, then you must vote." Kim Davis is saying, "Get involved." Kim Davis is also saying, "Thanks to these brothers for their leaderships." Okay. Have we went through where are we at now? Where are we at now?
So dog catcher, let me see.
The
Scott
best
Hamilton is
one.
one of the right.
Scott's
You know,
favorite race.
that's right. I mean, yeah. I mean, we got some Supreme Court judge race here. I can't read my writing. I wrote some stuff down. I can't even read it. You
I'm
got
coming through. I'm
you got
combing
two
through them
parties here.
all.
You've got an incumbent. Gentleman's name is it Ronnie? I think it's Bronni, and you have John I. Adams. Again, Supreme Court. I mean, these are judges. Yeah, these are folks that when something real serious goes on, it goes before our Supreme Court judges, right? And they make a determination of which way an issue might go. And again, research those judges. I'm telling you, a lot of times people don't pay attention to those judge races. They are vitally important because, again, at the end of the day, they determine what the rule of law is, and it could change. I mean, right now, we may be able to drive down the freeway at 75 miles an hour. We get the wrong folk in there, from my opinion.
Right.
They might say that the speed limit, again, is 55. Now, none of y'all don't get to remember it was 55. I do. I got used to get a lot of tickets when it's 55. I don't get too many at 75 because I 72 is good for me. As long as the lawmakers keep the highways at 75, I'm straight, right?
Right.
And Scott likes a fast car.
I got some fast cars. Oh, I got a lot of fast cars. I don't drive fast no more, but I got some fast cars. But seriously, that's the type of thing. If we've got legislators that pass a rule or bill or something that says that you can no longer have hamburgers and French fries, I'm gonna be pissed off, right?
Right.
If we got someone that gets into the political office and they push something that says that you got to get up and work out in the gym every day, I'm gonna be pissed off. Because those are the things that right now we have freedoms, and that's what you want when you're looking at candidates, when you're looking at decisions. You don't always have to look at things maybe just from yourself. Look at the big picture, right? I'm at an age now where a lot of things that are going on I've kind of experienced. When I go vote, I look at what's important to me, right? But I also look at what's going to be important to the younger me, right? When I was 17, 18, 19. Because if we don't do the things for our younger people and help them have a society that they can thrive in, that they can make good decisions, that they can have a successful life, we as old folk going to have real trouble. So I think it's important sometimes when you do your research, don't always be selfish. There's a lot of things that are on the ballot that would probably benefit me financially greatly. And many times I vote against it. Simply because making sure that our younger people have a society that's good and allows them to do things outweighs any direct impact for something as simple as a financial gain for me. Think about that. So the more you vote, the more savvy you get, the more experience you get. Think deeper, think broader, think of things that are the next 2, 3, 5, 10 years down the road. Because when you vote, a lot of the things are going to be 2, 3, 5, 10 years down the road. As Eddie said, a lot of times you'll see certain politicians and names that have been around forever. We know some of those names, and we get comfortable. It's like, oh, well, so and so been there 32 years, and then people are fearful of running against them. Run against them because they do not own that seat. Eddie said it best: they don't own that seat.
And run and be okay with losing.
That
and continuing to make noise and
right.
continuing to encourage others, because you're running for office could be the encouraging spark that says, all right, I definitely need to get out here and vote,
Yeah.
And I can't help but to think about the fact that it's really simple. Regardless of the perspective you have on any one candidate or the person, when we all get off of this tonight and I get up here and get these final words in with my little man before he goes off to school tomorrow, we all want our communities and neighborhoods to thrive. And I remember, I talk with my cousins all the time about growing up in the East End projects because it was a project, but we
Mhm,
thrived over there in 79 Hollingsworth in those orange bricks.
mhm.
And I remember then moving off of 14th and Woodrow, and we thrived when we could go get penny candy and the sour pickle with the peppermint and walk around the neighborhood free of anything happening to us from sun up to sundown. How fortunate were we to have thriving communities like that where people were looking out for you? And I think that at the end of the day, that's what people want every day we wake up and live and breathe the air that God's blessed us to breathe is a thriving community. So regardless of the personalities, simply put, we want our communities to thrive, and your vote dictates how these communities thrive with the people we're talking about tonight and why we're encouraging you to go vote. It has to become real simplistic for you. If your way of life isn't the way you think it should be, mobilize, organize, and get people out to go to these polls and make the decision that will impact your community thriving or falling by the wayside.
B level. I'm gonna do one of yours. I'm reading one of the
Yeah,
one of the
come
guests.
on, come on.
Regina Sweet Heat said, "So how do we get our people to vote? A lot of people are scared to go to the polls. Some people don't think it makes a difference, and not knowing every vote counts." I appreciate that because she summed it
Mhm,
up very well.
mhm, mhm,
Everything you said there is that's what we're talking about tonight. Everybody
mhm,
that encourage them. That's why we're
mhm,
talking about this. That's why we're saying do the research, understand that, yeah, your vote does really count. It really does.
mhm,
If you don't think it,
Mhm,
it counts, then don't vote and see what keeps happening in society. When you see certain things that you say, man, I can't believe this happened. Well, did you vote? Right?
mhm,
Everything that goes on in our society, I guarantee you, in some fashion, can be tied to voting.
mhm,
Everything.
mhm,
It
mhm.
starts, like I said, when you in high school, you got student body president. If you got
Yes,
student body president, the student body president has a direct line to the principal representing the students. So if all the
yes.
students are saying, "Hey, we tired of these," you can tell you how old I am, them fish sticks for lunch, and we want Chick-fil-A.
Nah, Scott, nah, they got they getting Chick-fil-A. These kids got a la carte lunch in fourth grade now. You can pick stuff.
But the
No more
answer
fish
to
sticks.
there's no position. But the answer is that it's having a conversation. When they
Indeed.
hear it from you, their peer, their neighbor, their friend, their family, it has way more value than Eddie and me sitting here
Mhm.
talking about it. It has way more value than these high dollar commercials you see, because as Eddie said earlier, I can put anything on media and be slick as I want to be and confuse you. But when you sit down to somebody that you go to church with, go to school with, work with, or just see down in the neighborhood, you sit down and say, "Hey, look, player, how are you voting?" And they say, "Well, I don't believe in that." Then it's your job to say, "Well, why not?" Ask them and see
Mhm.
what the answer is. But it's simply the conversation. That's what we've tried to do here tonight. We will continue to do is let's try to make this as straight up honest as it is. This is not a mysterious thing. This isn't something that so-called them type people do. Everybody needs to do this. It's simple, it's easily done, and it's probably one of the most important things that you can do as a citizen. So yeah, I appreciate that. Get out
Let me
there
let
and
me let me let me do a reply to what she said. She also said, Scott Hamilton, I'm gonna start a platform on my page and try to impact the community to get them to vote. I'm gonna do the research so I can encourage others. Thank you for leading the way. Big round of applause for her for that comment. Big round of applause for that. Kim Davis is saying that part, Eddie. Run and be okay with losing because it
that's
may
right.
spark someone else. Christy Mitchell was saying, I guess she's talking about voting. It makes the biggest difference in our local races. Okay, yeah, I'm caught up with the comments. So,
Beloved, I want to bring in one more thing before we escaped. He mentioned, or the questionnaire spoke about fear. And we're in a space and place now where locally and through your phone, as the young lady said, she's going to do her research and put information together and mobilize people. You can get rides to the polls. You can call on your local community folks. There are many ways that you can not only eliminate that fear by going with other people to the polls, there are poll watchers at the polls. I mean, there should not be a reason for fear. No one's at the polling site with a shotgun and threatening to take you out in the middle of the street and, you know, do some hinder just crazy stuff. I can't believe we had to go through to get to this point. You can walk clearly in there, free of your conscience of fear, because nobody. It's like if you owe a bill in the hood. You know, we don't like stuff lights to get cut off, nothing to happen when you get low on your money. But there ain't no money boogeyman coming to get you if you short. Your lights may go off, but nobody's coming to get you because you don't have that money. And the same way with your votes, there is no voting boogeyman that is going to come and grab you in today's times. So to eliminate that fear, going with friends, mobilizing rides to the polls, finding out if there are rides to the polls in your local communities or in your local districts for these races. Many of these candidates provide that type of service. They'll even feed you when you get to the polls sometimes. So the fear opportunity, I want to hopefully negate and inform everybody out there. You should not by any means walk in fear when you're
Yeah.
going in to cast your votes at the polls. They're not shipping us off for that.
And so, before we end this, we're talking about local races. There were a couple of heated races down there in Jefferson County that we hadn't touched on. And I wanted, before we get out of here, I want to share the screen. Couple of heated things. I've had a couple of people on the podcast down in Jefferson County judge. I know we've got some good attorneys. I know Ephraim Neely Sr. is on
You
there.
got the clerk race.
Yeah. Gerald Robinson, who's the judge down there now. They've got Michael Turley, Eric Walden Jr., Nathaniel Todd, Jeff Edwards. That's a real big, interesting.
That's a slate.
Yeah, that's a really good, interesting fight. I have a lot of our listeners that tune in from Jefferson County. They are in the thick of it down there in Pine Bluff. They are thugging it out down there.
Yeah.
And
So
let's not give them no. I couldn't
see-
say they thugging it out because that is such a mecca of all things to the existence of Black pride in Arkansas. Shout out to Mayor Vivian Flowers and Senator Stephanie Flowers and the Harold Flowers Law Society and just countless icons that have come out of that city. So, beyond the thugging it days, they're going to the mat to make this thing happen.
Yes.
And I like that about Pine Bluff. I really like the fact that Jefferson County does.
Yes.
You might see each other in the IGA or the local Whole Foods every day in Pine Bluff. And there ain't no shame in it.
What you're saying there, though, is and I love that because you rattle off some names. I know every one of them people, right?
Yes.
And the beauty of that is that when you really start to see change, that's what you see. When you start to see a group of folks like, dang, I don't even know who to go with. That's a good thing. Because I'm gonna tell you something, Pine Bluff's on the move. And when stuff is on the move, that's when you see people getting active, and that's what you want. So if you're in a community or a space where you feel like it's stagnant, shake it up, run for something. And that's what you're seeing down there in Pine Bluff. I'm glad you brought up Pine Bluff.
One other race, that sheriff race is a heated debate down there. Lafayette Woods, Mark Cannon. There are some big races in Jefferson County and Pine Bluff for real.
Oh, yeah.
All I know is Lafayette's got a good golf game. Shout out, he's a great sheriff, too. He's been a great sheriff. He's a great guy. Pine Bluff has had some treasures, and Lafayette's been one of them. So no endorsement there. That's a friend, and I would say that on this or not on this.
Well, listen, but I cannot let you guys get out of here without giving your last thoughts. I'm gonna give both of you an opportunity to give me your last thoughts, the thoughts that you want to leave all of our listeners. And we have a lot of streams that come after, right? Almost 70% of our views, the people that they're gonna come after we get off, right? So I want to give each and both of you guys an opportunity to give your last thought. And I'm gonna start with Eddie first. I'm gonna let Scott close us out. But Eddie, what is your last thought to what you want to leave these people with?
First thought is an extreme thank you, Brother B Level. Hats off and a double salute once again for you inviting us on. Mine's real simple, as I've said this evening. If you don't love politics, appreciate the participation aspect of it. You don't have to like these politicians. You don't have to like the school of politics, but you can participate. You can go vote. And so that is what I want to continue to beat on, is that no matter the party, no matter the economic background, no matter what corner of the state you come from, no matter the race lines, get yourself registered, get engaged in this process, and please participate in this voting process for yourself, not for me. I'm not asking for a favor. I'm asking you to do yourself your own do solid by participating. So you don't have to love it, but you do have to participate. And I appreciate you.
All right, what do you say, Scott? Your turn.
You know, man, I can be simple or I can be complex. I'm gonna be right in the middle. Vote like your life depends on it, because it does. It really does. When you decide that there's something that you want to do in life, you need to make sure right now you're doing something that impacts whether or not that can happen. You know, we've kept it light, but we are really in some perilous times right now. What we
Indeed.
see in our democracy is, in my opinion, an absolute disaster. We've got so much going on, so much misinformation, so many things that I would have never thought in my lifetime we would revisit. Most of the time, people and societies and organizations kind of learn from their past, the mistakes, the errors, the things that are not so great. Um, the United States of America is a democracy, and you've heard many times say it's an experiment, because it is. There's no other society on this globe like the United States. In my opinion, it's the best place in the world to live, because you truly can still do whatever you want in this country, so long as you understand how this country works. And the most fundamental level of a citizen is voting. That's about all you got. You can have a whole lot of money, you can have a whhole lot of popularity, you can have a whole lot of whatever. And I can tell you right now, that has no more power than that vote. Now, you might say, okay, well, it's just one vote. I agree with you. That one vote don't sound a lot alike. But give me a group of folks working together on something versus anything else, and we're going to win every time. So my suggestion is this: is know yourself first, know who your God is, know what your family's about, what your values are, do the research, and then get involved. Ask questions, do your own research, and just get involved. Are you going to make mistakes? You sure will. But the more you do it, it's like anything else, the better you're going to get. But at the end of the day, I think that we can change the society and make it what we all want. It's never going to be 100% of what you want, but as long as you're in the process, that's as good as it can get. I always say, if there's 100 animals in the room, you got 50 cats and 50 dogs. If 40 cats vote on what's for dinner and 10 dogs, guess what you're going to eat? You're going to be eating cat food. So make sure that you're involved in a process that at least gives you a shot at getting some of the things that are important to you and your family. Those are my closing statements.
All right, before you guys go, I'm gonna give you my closing statement, then we'll dismiss. Okay, here we go. All right, tonight wasn't about choosing sides. All right, it was about choosing participation. We didn't tell you who to vote for. We didn't push a party. We didn't campaign. We educated, because your vote is personal. It's powerful, and it's yours. Whether it's a local race that affects your school and streets, or a national race that shapes policy across the country, every position on the ballot has impact. And now that you have more clarity, if this episode helped remove confusion, if this made the ballot feel less intimidating, then we did our job. Now the rest is up to you. Go register, show up, cast your vote. I want to tell you guys again, thank you. Eddie, listen, bro, been a fan a long time, brother. I appreciate you showing up. Scott, thank you. You continue to support. Scott, I see your name every Sunday evening, brother. It really means a lot to me that you have supported this movement and this podcast for the last 2 years. Thank you, brother. Thank you, brothers. We have a responsibility with this podcast to entertain and inform. And so that's what we did tonight, is inform. We don't take every view that we earn. We don't take it lightly. Thank you, brothers. Thank you again. Okay.
Indeed.
All right, I'm
Thank
gonna let
all
you
for
guys
having us.
go, and don't forget to tune in on each and every Sunday night at the Unpacking the Baggage podcast, the best damn podcast in the world. I promise you, I believe
Yes, it
that.
is.
Until Sunday, thank you, Scott.
Yes, it is.
Until Sunday, 7
Thank you,
o'clock.
sir.
See you same bad time, same bad channel. Good night, y'all.
Good night.
Y'all hold the line. Hold the line.
Had another rough conversation with the voices in